Do you want to know how long a copyright lasts? Do you want to know whether a work that could have been copyrighted was never registered? Do you want to know how to determine whether a copyright was not renewed? Do you want to know the rules for works from different foreign countries? Do you want to find out whether a use you have in mind would constitute fair use under the law? Are you going to deal with a work that has derivative works? These are all subjects in this series of videos. This video is on fair use under the copyright laws. Before watching this video, you should have already viewed the one on derivative works. If not, stop now, go to the video on derivative works, and then come back. Don't worry, this video will be here when you get back. In the video on derivative works, we took a look at photographic images of Barack Obama and John McCain and explained how the copyright status of each of the four was different. The question that arose at the end of that discussion was whether a manipulation of an image of Barack Obama, or of anyone else, could be regarded as a fair use of the photographic image on which someone else owns copyright. In examining that question, we can look for an answer in a United States Supreme Court verdict concerning an earlier United States president, Gerald Ford. A magazine had quoted and paraphrased President Ford's then unpublished memoirs without permission. The Supreme Court ruled against the magazine. A substantial reason for ruling against the magazine was that the market for President Ford's memoirs were dampened by the advance publication without payment to Ford's publisher. The Supreme Court did, however, recognize that several aspects of the unauthorized copying were permitted under the law. Fair use is indeed a defense when it concerns news reporting, comment on public figures, and it is fine when the amount of the work used is not so substantial in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. In the case of Gerald Ford's memoirs, the financial loss to Ford's publisher was pretty easy to figure out because Time magazine canceled a contract it had to run excerpts from Ford's memoir prior to publication. So when The Nation magazine scooped Time's cancellation of its contract made it pretty clear how much financial loss was involved. It's much more difficult to figure out how much Shepard Fairey's appropriation of the Associated Press photograph resulted in loss of reprint rights, for instance, that it otherwise could have earned. Yet another case involving yet another American president has aspects that parallel those of Shepard Fairey's use of the Associated Press photograph for the iconic image of then-candidate Barack Obama. Life magazine had bought the exclusive right to publish images taken by Abraham Zapruder's camera of the assassination of President Kennedy, the only images of the assassination that are known to have been recorded. Life's corporate parent, Time Incorporated, is able to earn money by contracting these rights out to other publications. When the author and publisher of a book about assassination theories of the Kennedy death wanted to use images, he didn't contract with Time Incorporated, but instead created drawings based upon the photographs. Was this permitted, or at the least, could this be considered fair use? The court decided that the sketches did indeed copy aspects of the original photographic images that were and remain copyrightable. They still convey the selectivity exercised by the photographer. Nonetheless, the images were regarded as fair use in this context because the market being reached by the book was different. It was a market that Time itself was not reaching, and because the court was not convinced that dissemination of the sketches interfered with the profits of Time Incorporated. The court said, "There is a public interest in having the fullest information available on the murder of President Kennedy, and that the author of the book did serious work on the subject." The judge also wrote the book would be not bought because it contained the Zapruder pictures, but because of the theory. Those interested in knowing more about this subject should study Section 107 of the Copyright Act. it is fairly short. The section on fair use has not changed in any substantial way since it was introduced into the copyright law in 1978. There was no equivalent section in the Copyright Acts prior to 1978. As is always the case with the current version of the copyright law, it can be seen at copyright.gov. Those wanting to check out the minor changes in the wording since 1978 can do as I always recommend in these videos. Go to law.copyrightdata.com and select one or more earlier versions of the copyright law using the pull-down menus. Knowing how courts have ruled in a variety of cases on fair use over the years can be instructive. There is a substantial number of these cases that are summarized at chart.copyrightdata.com. I recommend that you view the pages on both fair use and similarity, since the page on similarity involves cases that are quite similar to those of fair use. If you've watched our videos on duration and early expiration, you know that this video series is pretty keen on giving you specific numbers and telling you what to add up and subtract to determine whether something is or is not legal to use. And perhaps you're waiting for the moment in this video when you're told what percentage of an earlier work you have the legal right to use.
Yeah, tell us!
I'm waiting with bated breath.
You've kept us waiting long enough!
Well, I can't give you any such numbers because the law doesn't recognize any such numbers. Well, not American law in any event. The United States Copyright Office has produced a fact sheet which states, "There is no specific number of words, lines, or notes that may safely be taken without permission. Acknowledging the source of the copyrighted material does not substitute for obtaining permission." And let that be a warning. However, the courts, arbitration, or out-of-court settlements may resolve the Shepard-Fairey case concerning the Associated Press photograph of Barack Obama, the whole situation would not have arisen at all had Shepard-Fairey contracted with the Associated Press for permission to use the photograph and to pay royalties, if any, on each use of the photograph.